Welcome to Integration Designer Apex. In this module, we'll be exploring the recommended programming workflow for Apex. This workflow has been designed to allow you to take advantage of Apex programming efficiencies, navigation, and programming best practices to help you stay on task, ensuring that you have more time to focus in on the end user experience. Let's get started.
Before we start our first step of our workflow, which is to add our processor, room, sources, and respective controllers, let's take a look at what we're going to accomplish. On the left side of the screen is the system that we're going to build in Apex. I have identified the communication protocol and the respective IR port routing. It's recommended that you take the time in advance to map out your system. This will ensure that you can build quickly and correctly inside of Apex. Remember, every minute you can save in programming leads to profitability. Looking at the middle of your screen, as we add the system to the workspace, we will make sure to make all necessary changes to the pages, IR routing, setting our room audio source, and adjusting the naming convention as desired. On the right side of your screen is what our workspace in Apex should look like when we've added our system correctly. Let's go ahead and add our system to Apex. After you have created and named your file, the first thing that will appear is the Add Workspace item, First Processor. You can see here I'm going to click on XP6 and add the processor. Now I'm going to create the room for the system, which is going to be the family room. Many will appear right here, or you could type out a custom name down below. I'm going to go ahead and add. Now that I've added my room, I'm going to add my controllers. For our one room scenario, we have a T2X. Here you can see that the pages have already been added for us. And I'm going to go ahead and name this room Family Room. I'm going to go ahead and copy this so I can use it later by hitting Control-C, add device. Now it will ask if I'd like to add another device. And we will add an RTI panel iPad. And now I've pasted Family Room. Add another device. And now I'm going to go ahead and add our drivers. Our first driver that we're going to add to the system is an Integra audio-video receiver. Right here is the Integra main zone receiver. I'm going to add that to the file. Since this is our audio-video receiver, it would be unnecessary to have pages for it. So I'm going to uncheck the box, and now there will be no pages created for the two different controllers. I'd also like to point out that it has found that this is the main audio source for the system, so it's check the box. Lastly, I'm just going to go ahead and add my family room label to there. I'm going to add the device. And yes, our next driver is going to be a DirecTV box. And you can see here that it keeps the last thing you've done the exact same, so I want to remember to go ahead and check this box because I would like to have pages for my controllers. Now I'm going to switch over to my infrared devices. I have a Sony Blu-ray. My pages are selected, and I can select my first port for IR routing right here. You can see that the is not the audio source, and there's no reason to have that there, so I'm going to go ahead and actually switch that over to the family room and add the device. I'm going to add my TV. Once again, I don't need to have any pages for the TV because although it's a smart TV, I'm going to be using an Apple TV for my streaming purposes. You can see here the Blu-ray player is port 1, and my TV will now be port 2. The audio is not checked because I do not want audio coming out of the TV because I'm having that coming out of the Integra receiver. Add the device. I have one more device to add, and that's the Apple TV. Add my pages. And select port 3 for the Apple TV. Alright, so now we have everything entered into our workspace, and I don't need to add any other additional devices. So as you can see, we've just entered in the first step of our workflow, which was our processors, rooms, sources, and controllers. Everything is all lined up right here for us. Our XP6, the two drivers, our family room, the controllers in the family room, our home page for our devices, and then all of our individual sources. The next step in our workflow will be to define the system properties. Although we've made a few adjustments when we added our system, now we're going to go in and make all the tweaks necessary to our processor and go into the properties and go into our drivers, make any adjustments, and then go into the controllers and make any adjustments necessary. Let's go ahead and do that in Apex. Now we are going to go ahead and make adjustments to our properties, starting with our XP6 processor. So you can see here a new window is open, the processor configuration, and I'm going to scoot down to the properties here, and this is where I would make any necessary adjustments and configurations for my network, port names, your location, making sure your clock is set correctly, etc. I would just follow along and go right on down to my drivers. Again, here you can see where I would have my driver properties, and I'd make any necessary tweaks. Same goes for my controllers. Here again is where I would do my configurations that I would need. So pretty straightforward. In this step, you're just going to go ahead and make sure that you take care of all these network setups and driver configurations that are necessary. That way, you're not going back into this at this time. You can continue to focus on the workflow and build out your system file. Our third step in our Apex workflow will be to create our source homepage design. In our workspace, underneath the family room, we're going to go to the sources and go to the home page. The source configuration page will pop up, and we will go underneath the T2X family room and select on the home page. Then what we will do is we are going to click on the bitmaps tab, identify our bitmaps for Watch DirecTV, Watch Blu-ray, and Watch Apple TV, and drag and drop them onto the home page. Let's do that in Apex now. In Apex, let's do the same thing for our workflow step, create source homepage design. Underneath the family room, under sources, is the home page. You can see that it's already highlighted for us. Here is the remote avatar. And what we're going to do is now drag and drop our bitmaps for Watch Satellite, Watch Blu-ray, and Watch Apple TV. Let's do that now. All right, we've added our 3 bitmaps.
Our fourth step in the Apex workflow is to drag our activity tags onto the activity buttons. We're going to go ahead and do this in Apex shortly, and we'll discuss in further detail how the activity tags work. Let's do that now. In order to drag our activity buttons, let's first go down and select Tags. And you can see here at the top of the page in the workspace for our tags is Activity Apple TV, Activity DirecTV Tuner, and Activity Blu-ray. Activity tags are automatically created for us when we add our system file into Apex. Activity tags provide us with 2 key elements for our system file. Number 1, they ensure that we have the same pages and frames for our entire system file across all of our controllers. And number 2, they provide us with a page link directly to that source. Let's go ahead and drag them over now. Now that all 3 of our activity tags have been dragged over to the activity buttons, you'll notice 2 things. During that process, your activity tag has changed from black text to green text. This is simply indicating that this tag is now in use throughout your system file. Secondly, your check marks now have a tag. You'll see that it has a page link and the name Activity DirecTV Tuner. Our next step will be to add the macros. We'll do that next. The 5th step in our Apex workflow is to create and build our room macros. As you see here, the first step we will do is to identify the type of macro that we will need. Then we'll be automatically directed to the multifunction window where we will go to our macro steps and then drag over our individual macros into our macro builder. Let's go ahead and do that now in Apex. In order to build out a macro in Apex for our activity tag, let's first click on Watch DirecTV. Now that it is highlighted, you'll notice down here in the tag toolbar and the macro types, there are various types of macros. In this case, since we want to watch DirecTV in the family room, we want to create a room macro. Let's do that now. The first thing you'll notice that we've been automatically switched over to the Macro Steps tab. You can see that Activity DirecTV Tuner is highlighted. So let's begin by adding our macro step. We'll go down to Sources and select our receiver first. And we will add our power by double-clicking on power. You can see how that's added over into the macro builder. And let's go ahead and add our input. All right. Next thing we will do is go ahead and add our TV macros for power and input. We'll go back up and add a time delay because we know we will need that. The point of the macro steps on the right is to just simply focus in on all the macro commands that you're going to need. Now that we're in the macro builder, here's where we can make and fine-tune our macros and put them in order and make any necessary adjustments. For example, the first thing that we will probably like to do in this particular macro is to get the TV turned on first because it has the longest delay. So I'm going to simply slide that up to the top. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in our time delay and make the necessary adjustments. And then I'm going to have my receiver turn on, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. While that's turning on, I'll go ahead and make my input selection on the TV. And last but not least, I'll go ahead and set my input. So as you can see, I've created my first macro steps for Activity Tag DirecTV. Now that it's done, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next steps inside of our workflow. Now that we've created step 5 in our workflow for Apex, which is to create and build a macro, we're going to move on to steps 6 and 7 in our Apex workflow, which is copy and paste the macro and then complete all of our activity macros. What you will see, since we've created our first activity tag for Watch DirecTV with the respective macros, we're going to be able to simply copy and paste that activity tag into our next activity tag, which is Watch Blu-ray. Then we will follow that up by doing our last and final activity tag, which is Watch Apple TV. Let's go ahead and see that live in Apex now. Since we took the time to create all 3 of our activity tags in our workflow, we can now simply copy and paste these macro steps and move them over into our next activity tag. I can do this by either selecting copy, or I can simply hit Control-C on my keyboard, click on my next activity tag, Blu-ray, and Control-V, or paste that set of macro commands for the next activity tag, Watch Blu-ray. And then simply make my minor adjustments to the receiver's input. Again, now that I've created this one, and I already have it copied, I can move to my third activity tag, which is Apple TV. And simply hit Control-V or paste. Make my final adjustment. And there you have it. All 3 of our activity tags are done for us in one screen view without moving back and forth throughout the software. This will help you keep on task, as well as make sure that you're not lost and or disoriented in the various different workspace options and configurations inside of Apex. Now that we've completed all 3 of our activity tags, we're ready to move on to our final step in our workflow. Let's go ahead and do that now. We will now move on to our 8th and final step in the Apex workflow. We're going to go ahead and modify our source home pages. First, what we'll do is we'll click on the DirecTV source page for the family room, and then click on the T2X page for Watch DirecTV. Then we will go to our Bitmaps tab and find our channel icons and drag and drop them over to our presets and continue to follow the workflow. Let's do that now in Apex. Now we're going to go to our source page for DirecTV. We're going to click on the T2X page. We're going to go ahead and create and customize our presets. The first thing I'm going to do is select the bitmaps. For my first bitmap, I'm going to select CNN. going to go ahead and drag over this bitmap to my first preset. And now I'm going to add in the HBO channel icon for my second preset. Now that I've dragged over my bitmaps, my next step is to go ahead and create the proper macro type. I'm going to highlight my preset 1, which is CNN. And then because I am in my source configuration page, I'm going to go down to the tags toolbar for preset 1, and you can see that it has already highlighted the source macro. You can see that it's auto-programmed for me that first preset. I'm going to go to my DirecTV under Sources in the Macro Steps and go to Direct Tuning and double-click. I will now add the channel number. And again, I'm going to utilize copy and paste so I can skip the macro step for my next preset. I'm going to hit Control-C and go to my second preset, hit Control-V, and change the channel number. It is that simple. We have now completed all 8 steps of our workflow. Although there are several ways to program in Apex, as you get going and get comfortable with the navigation and the various types of key concepts, this workflow will ensure that you're able to knock out similar tasks that will lead to efficient programming behaviors, provide you with less confusion when it comes to macro types and building your tags, and of course, it'll speed up the programming with copy and paste, which will lead to more time to an intuitive designed interface for your client.